Hey, Kelly, welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hey guys, it's great to be here.
We are glad to have you here with us because you have a great story of paying off a boatload of debt, making your way to debt freedom, and we can't wait to hear all about your journey. But before we do that, can you just say hello to everybody and let them know what you're all about?
Yeah, hey guys, I am living in South Florida now. I've been here for about 10 years. I recently paid off a ton of debt, cash flowed a wedding, and I'm a newlywed, which is really exciting and fun.
Well, congratulations on all of the above. So you're debt free today, but you weren't always debt free. So talk to everybody about the type of debt that you were once in, the type amount, like the breakdown, and also talk to us about how long this process took for you.
So I had only student loans. I never had any credit card debt or anything like that. I did previously finance a car, but by the time that I started my debt-free journey, it was already paid off. And I paid off $23,000 worth of debt, and that took about 15 months.
Awesome. So for you, you got student loans. Just about everybody almost has student loans. It seems to be the way the world is moving these days. But something sparked in you to make you want to do something different. Although you had the student loans, you felt like you didn't want to keep the student loans. How did that turn of events start to unfold in your life to make you think that there was something that you could do that would allow you to get rid of your student loans faster than, what's typically done, which is to keep them for 10, 15, 20 years?
Well, I was actually perfectly fine with them. My payments weren't very high, and so I was like everyone else, I'll just make the minimum payments and it'll be fine. And then, 10 years, 15 years down the road, they'll be gone. But me and my husband, we were only dating at the time, and we wanted to get married, and we wanted to just finance the wedding. And we actually talked about how much of a loan we would take out and finance the ring and whatnot. And we went to my dad, and he said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead. I don't care." We went to his parents, and his parents were like, "No, we love Kelly. We know Kelly's the one for you, but you need to get your finances in order. You need to get the debt under control. You need to get savings." And we were a little taken aback. We were a little resentful at first, but it really kicked us into gear. And I was so determined to get married and start this life. And we had been dating for 3.5 years. And I'm from like a very Bible college culture where you date for 6 months and get married. So this was like a lifetime compared to all of my friends. And so we just got like high gear. We're going to pay off this debt. We're going to save this for this wedding. I don't want to take out a penny of loans or debt or anything for the wedding. We want to cash flow it 100%. And that just put us into let's do this. Halfway through, we did get a little bit of an inheritance, and so that helped take care of the loans. But then we didn't use that for the wedding. We still cash flowed the entire wedding, which was really cool and really rewarding.
How did you guys kind of pick your jaw up off the floor from that initial shock of your soon-to-be mother-in-law saying, "Nah, you guys need to get out of debt"? Because at first it was a blow, and then something happened to make you guys like flip the switch and say, "You know what? She's right. We need to do this." So talk about that interim period and how things changed.
It was a lot. At those first month or so, it was like, this is ridiculous. Why can't she just live, let us live our lives? We're grown adults. Let us make our own mistakes and learn from them. But at the end of the day, the Bible says to honor your mother and father, and we had to honor her. And so we just said, you know what, we're going to prove her wrong. And, I think she kind of thought that we wouldn't take it as serious and that we would just kind of put off the wedding more. But we were like, we're going to do everything that we can. And I am a very, I love challenges. So I'm like, all right, let's make it a challenge. Let's get the grocery budget as low as we can. Let's do this as low as we can. We still had separate finances, but everything that I could control in my part of the finances I did, and same for him. And then as much side hustle as we could.
So what were some of the initial plans that you all thought of once your mindset changed to, yeah, I think we can do this? So what did you guys map out? What did you all forecast as you all's next step to prove your future mother-in-law wrong?
First thing is we did a spending analysis of, what of our bank accounts, what are we spending in grocery, what are we spending in eating out, got in a written budget, an Excel budget, so that we could track every penny. If we had, 37 cents left in grocery, we didn't roll it over to the next month, and we put that towards our debt so that we could do everything that we could. And we did a ton of side hustle, a ton of overtime. I ended up getting a new job in the process, which was like a $6,000 raise a year. So there was a lot of little things that all added up to big things.
Now, that analysis that you initially did, how did that look for somebody who is looking to figure out how to start, and their ears kind of perked up when you said that? So, like, how far back in your spending did you go, and what did you do with all that information?
So what I did is I took, we didn't have credit cards, so we did this all individually. So I'll guess I'll talk as I. So what I did is I looked at my bank account. I only had one checking account, and I opened up an Excel spreadsheet and I made categories: grocery, eating out, car repair, clothes. There was a lot of categories because there was a lot of crazy spending that I shouldn't be doing. So I just went through every single purchase that I made, even if it was 75 cents to a vending machine, it went in there. And then I added up all the totals. So all the totals for grocery for each month, all the totals for eating out, all the totals for gas, etc. And then I did that for each month for about 6 months. And then I took an average of each category and made that the monthly budget. So say my average was $200 for grocery. I made that the budget for grocery. And then later on, I would cut that down to try and get more scorched earth.
After you went through that exercise, did you learn something about your spending habits that you weren't quite aware of?
I was a spender. And it's funny now because I'm the nerd in the relationship, so it's like totally like 360. Now I'm like, do I really need that? This shirt is falling apart, but it's okay. We can let it go. We can cover it up with a cardigan. I'm total opposite from how I was.
And how was that first kind of endeavor where you realized that you're a spender, you put yourself on a budget, and then you attempted to budget for the first time? Did everything go smooth? Was there a learning curve? And how did you kind of go through that?
It was hard. Dave Ramsey talks about when you're starting a budget, it takes 3 to 6 months to get on board and to learn through it. And I think a lot of people, they'll get on a budget and they expect their first month to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. And it kind of took me a few months to get used to it, learn how to cut down my spending, and just not get discouraged of saying, I may have gotten $50 over, but this is still so much better than I was before. And so I would just remind myself of how far I've come and just keep that end goal in mind of this is what we want. This is why we're doing it.
What about your fiance, now husband? How was his process as he was, I'm assuming, going through the same exercises on his end of the finances?
He was a little looser than I was. He didn't have a written budget, but he also didn't have his money expenses. He was still living with his parents at the time to try and save money. So he would, have a budget. He didn't do an Excel budget, but he knew how much he had to spend on groceries, how much on gas and eating out, and he would just make sure he stayed within that. And then he would be putting money aside for our wedding.
And how was like the communication during this time? Because like you said, you guys at this point were still engaged, so your finances were combined. So you were both getting out of debt, but you were kind of on two individual journeys. So how are you all discussing progress and setting goals and benchmarks and things like that?
So I was going to be going into the marriage with student loan debt. He had no debt at all, which was a huge blessing. His parents actually saved and paid for his college. So my main focus was saving for the wedding and paying off my debt, and his main focus was saving for the wedding. So because we cash flowed the whole thing. So we would talk, after, a good side hustle, I just made $200 tonight, and we would kind of talk through that. And then at the end of each month, we would say, how much progress we made, what, were some of our wins or fails, how much we were able to put for each item.
So you guys had two goals going on simultaneously. One goal was debt freedom. The other goal was saving up for a wedding. How did you guys decide? Like, was there like a certain percentage of money going towards debt and another percentage going toward wedding savings? How did you guys discuss and settle on that?
So 100% of his was going towards the wedding fund. And then for mine, half of it going towards the debt payoff. And then the other half was going towards the wedding fund. And then we ended up paying off my loans in March of 2017 and got married in October. So those last 7 months were 100% for the wedding fund.
And you mentioned that you guys were side hustling like crazy. So talk to us, give the people listening some ideas about, what you all did to increase some income, because maybe they could do it too.
Mm-hmm. So a big side hustle was overtime. I honestly, I went to my boss and I said, I understand that a raise may not be in the works, but can we work something out with overtime? And she was really glad that I asked. And so we decided that I could work through my lunches. So that was 5 hours of overtime a week, which was huge. Then we actually had a really kind of unique situation with babysitting. So our DJ from our wedding, he owned a production company. So he would do DJ and lights and all that stuff for weddings and bar mitzvahs. And so my husband, Jamie, would do the lighting for the gigs and I would babysit his daughter. So we were both working for them the same night. And a lot of those weddings were, long day weddings, because they would start setting up at noon and then the wedding would go until midnight, but then they have to break down. So we'd be working from like noon in the afternoon to 3 o'clock in the next morning. So it was long days. And then we'd get up for church the next morning at 8 o'clock. So it was a lot of sacrifice. It was a lot of times where I just wanted to, stay home, or I just wanted to work on my YouTube channel and edit and do different things. But I was like, no, this is a sacrifice that we're going to make. So that was a huge one, of just babysitting and, trying to get word of mouth of, referrals. She would refer me to some of her friends, and that was another great way to get other babysitting gigs.
Does your credit score have you down and looking for solutions? You may just find the answers you're looking for with Credit Sesame. Credit Sesame is your solution for a free no-hassle credit score, credit analysis, and tips for managing your money. They are here to help you take control of and have the tools you need to bring about a bright financial future. Get empowered today. There's no credit card required. Receive identity theft protection up to $50,000 and discover a marketplace for credit and loan officers that will help you get to your next level. Visit hisandhermoney.com/credit sesame for more details.
So in those moments where you felt less than motivated to keep going and keep grinding and keep hustling, how did you not give up and how did you keep going?
Just pushed through and just said, this is something we want to do. And this is, I feel like once you may not want to get up and go do it, but once you're there, you're good. And so it was just like, all right, it's just like getting out of bed. You want to press snooze, but finally once you get up out of bed, you're good. And so that was just kind of the mentality we had of just go do it.
As you all were going through this process, were there some challenges that popped up that could have taken you completely off track? And if so, how did you guys overcome these obstacles and ultimately hit your goals?
There was some spending times where I mentioned before that my husband is a free spirit and a spender, and there were some times where he really wanted to spend money in different things and just kind of getting him back on track. We used to call him a groomzilla because he wanted all this fancy stuff for the wedding, and just kind of taming him down so that we weren't going to be taking out debt for the wedding, of just reminding ourselves of our goals. And we didn't have anything too major, any too big of Murphys come up. We had one small, fender bender, but that was something that we were able to cash flow. But nothing too major.
How did you guys work through that? Because there's lots of couples listening where one spouse is the spender and one's the saver, and the personality of both can frustrate the other because they're not the same, and they don't think the same sometimes, and they don't act the same sometimes in regards to the money. And that can be discouraging to the point of no progress being made. But like you said, there were times where he would spend or want to buy something, and you guys figured out how to navigate back on the proper track. Talk to us, talk to the person listening of how you guys were able to, when you found yourself off course, figure out how to get back on the right track.
We actually dealt with that not when we were saving for the wedding and paying off debt, but actually after the wedding. And, you know, people talk about how money's the number one reason for divorce. And I was like, oh, that's not going to happen to us. We're out of debt and all this stuff. Like, we're doing awesome. Like, money's not going to be an issue in our marriage. What are you talking about? Well, our first couple of months of marriage, we were fighting all the time about it. And it was crazy because I was like, all right, we're making all this money now. We finally combined finances. We have a great income. We still have big goals. You know, we still want to finish baby step 3 and save for a new car. And he's like, I'm making all this money. I want to go out to eat. I want to go spend this. I want to do this. And it was like, it was really hard because we weren't on the same page with it and we weren't communicating the way that we should be. And we both had to compromise. And me as a nerd, I had to kind of loosen the reins a little bit and say, okay, let's give you a little bit extra spending money. And he had to say, okay, like Kelly's worked really hard in this. Let's help her out. And one of the compromises that we made is him bringing lunch twice a week to work. So if he does travel for work. So if he's in town, then I'm going to make him lunch twice a week. So that was a huge compromise that we made, and just learning how to communicate in that.
Oh, love it, love it, love it. Now you started this process where you had one set of parents that they weren't really saying or trying to encourage you guys to get out of debt. And then you had another set that was. As you guys launched out and were in the thick of it, and then as you guys were, you know, figuring out how to become debt free, what was the response like from both sides? What were you hearing? What were you experiencing from family and friends?
As we really started to go and make momentum, they got really proud and they were like, wow, they're doing it. You know, they're doing awesome. And there were some times where they were like, oh, but just spend this, and oh, it's okay, come out to eat with us, or oh, just buy this, and it's okay. And, you know, sometimes they would say, oh, well, why don't you do this with Jamie's idea and have this 6-piece band at the wedding? And I was like, no, we don't need all these extra musicians. We're having 3 musicians. We don't need 6. And so just kind of calming them down a little bit. But all in all, they were really proud of us and really encouraging.
Now, I mean, how did you keep yourself calm? You talked about calming your parents down, but you're getting married. This is a big deal. And we're in the age of social media, so you can look at Instagram and Pinterest and get all kind of ideas on how to make this spectacular wedding happen. How come you didn't go like bananas or allow yourself to get off track, you know, in the way that your husband did from time to time and wanting to spend on certain aspects of the wedding? How did you remain super hyper focused?
I think honestly, as embarrassing as this is to say, I've become such a nerd with the budget that I'm just like, okay, no, we can't spend money on that. No, we can't. That's going to be too much. But there was times where I had to be like, Kelly, no, this is your wedding. It's going to happen once in a lifetime. We cashed it. It was a $30,000 wedding. So it wasn't the cheapest wedding, wasn't the most expensive wedding. And it was still, for South Florida, very nice, you know, wedding on the Intercoastal. So it was just a dream, and it was awesome.
So in this time period, along with paying off debt, you all saved up $30,000?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, that is huge. How did that feel? We'll get to the debt in just a second, but how did it feel to, as you're, you know, pinching pennies and you're making sacrifices and you're not able to go out with everybody, but you're working extra time at your job, you're babysitting, you're doing lighting, and you hit this number, this benchmark of $30,000 in savings. How did that feel?
It was incredible. I remember, you know, everyone talked about soaking up the day and this and that and, you know, remembering your guests, and which we did all that. But I also remember when we left the reception venue and we were driving to our hotel. We actually borrowed one of his friend's Maseratis. So we were in this nice fancy car that we could never afford, or we probably could afford it one day, but probably won't. And I was thinking, like, we did this. Like, we made this happen, and we didn't take out any debt. It was such a moment of, I'm so proud of myself. Like, we sacrificed, we, bled tears and, or cried tears of blood or whatever. And, it was all worth it. And it was a dream wedding. I had a dream dress. All my family and friends were there. And we made it happen and didn't take out any debt. And it was so proud. Like, I'm cash flowing a car right now. And I just can't wait in September when we buy my new but 2017 car. Like, it's going to be that same feeling of, I did this. I could have taken a loan, but I sacrificed and I did this. And it's so rewarding.
So which happened first? Was it you hit the savings benchmark or you got rid of the debt?
We got rid of the debt first.
So talk to us about that. You mentioned earlier in the episode about you all received some type of inheritance. So how did that play a factor in you all's ability to get out of this debt?
Mm-hmm. So we started paying off the debt. Well, I started and paying off the debt because Jamie wasn't paying on any of my debt. All of that was just me. And because we had separate finances. So I started paying it off in January of 2016. And then in March of 2017, so like 13, 15 months later, my grandmother had passed away. And since my mom had previously passed away, I received her portion of the inheritance. So with that, we decided to follow Dave Ramsey's baby steps. So we, finished off my student loans and paid those off. And then we decided that we didn't want to put any of the money towards the wedding. We wanted to cash flow that. But we just put that the rest of it into savings. And then after the wedding, then we really got hardcore on saving for baby step 3. And then halfway through that, then my grandmother's house sold. So we got another small portion of the inheritance from the sale of the house. And with that, we finished off baby step 3. So since we don't have kids, we contribute 15% to our retirement. I guess technically we would be in baby step 7, which is really cool of just having that. And now we're cash flowing a car.
Awesome. Well, first, sorry for your loss, and you did the right thing, honoring all the hard work that she put into creating the inheritance, and the way that you used it was definitely 100% honorable on your part. So great job on that. So now you pay off the debt. You hit the benchmark to save it for your wedding. You guys are together and figuring out how to be husband and wife and how to coexist in your finances. And now you guys are saving for a car. How do you guys have healthy money conversations now? Because like you said, when it first took place and you all first got married, things kind of went awry. And how do you all maintain that now that you have a little bit of time on your side? How do you make sure that everything stays on track with your finances as a couple?
Mm-hmm. We're really a lot more open in our communication now. Before, it was me just running the budget 100% and then just kind of telling him, oh, here, we're putting this towards this amount and this towards this amount, and not really communicating. And so now we have a budget meeting in the beginning of the month where we talk about what we want to spend. If something comes up throughout the month, we'll talk about it. We have a rule that we don't spend over $50 without discussing it with each other. So if he wants to he just bought some new monitors. So if he wants to buy a new monitor, he says, hey, it's going to be $200. And then we discuss that, put it into the budget. And then at the end of the month, we'll talk about it, and we'll talk about what we were able to hit, how much we were able to put towards savings and giving and different things. And just make sure that we're always talking about it and in communication with it. And also a huge thing is giving ourselves spending money, giving ourselves money for eating out. So he can go out with his coworkers, giving him money that he can spend on Amazon, and, that he's not feeling super restricted.
So you guys have kind of mastered the art of setting savings targets and hitting them. So, and a lot of people, because you're like you just said, you're saving for a car right now. A lot of people don't think like it's a realistic thing to be able to buy a car in cash. So talk to us about that process. How did you figure out how much you wanted to save? And did you first find a car that you liked and figured out an average price and then say, this is how much we need to save? Talk to us about how you all are going about this process.
Yeah, so first I bought when I moved to Florida from Massachusetts when I was 18 years old, I had my mom's hand-me-down Ford Focus. And on the way down to Florida, the fuel pump went 120 miles north of where our destination was. So we had to ride 120 miles in the tow truck. And just things were breaking, and I was like, is this God's way of telling me I'm not supposed to come to Florida? But we ended up coming, and it was great. And then more and more things were breaking because I was from a snow area with salt on the ground. Then I moved to Florida with the humidity, and just everything on the car rusted, and it was just bad. So I said, I need a new car. Everything's breaking. I don't want anyone else's problems. I want a brand new car. Whereas I wish if someone told me, Kelly, get one that's like a year old. It's not going to have problems. It'll still be new, but you won't have to pay the extra $4,000 in these extra, free fees that you lose the value when you take it off the lot. So I ended up buying this car, and now it's paid off, but it's starting to get up there in age. So we realized that it's time for me to start saving for another car, an upgrade of kind of like I guess I don't really technically need it now, but we feel that we deserve it. We're in a great place financially. So I've always wanted a Jeep Grand Cherokee. It's always been my car. But Jamie is a Chevy family. He's always had Chevys. So he kind of convinced me to become a Chevy family too. So we decided on the Chevy Equinox. So we went on CarMax and looked at some prices, and for one that's by a year or two old is about $20,000. So we decided that we're going to start there, $20,000. We'll probably be able to negotiate down to 18, 19, but we're going to come with $20,000 cash, and we have about $11,000 saved now. So we figure about September.
Love it. Love it. What's the biggest lesson about life in general that you learned as a result of this maturation process in regards to your finances?
That's not my money. It's not Jamie's money. It's God's money. And, we need to honor him with it. We tithed throughout the whole process, even when we could barely pay our bills. We tithed with it. And just another thing of having a budget. So many people feel like it's constricting, and it's the opposite. And that's the name of my YouTube channel, Freedom in a Budget. When you're in a budget, it gives you freedom. Before, I used to feel so guilty of spending money on eating out and this and that. But when you put it as a line item in your budget, you have the freedom to spend that $50 on eating out. And you have the freedom to enjoy life. You just have to work it into your budget. And that was a really eye-opening experience for me. My parents were very tight on their money, and they could never really enjoy it. And Jamie's parents were wealthy. So we grew up in totally different households. And so I was always afraid to spend money. Or that I would be living paycheck to paycheck and bouncing checks and stuff like I was previously in college.
We love to give recommendations to read because we think that's such a big part of becoming better with your money is financial literacy and educating yourself. Are there any book recommendations that you would offer up that impacted you in a positive way? It doesn't have to necessarily be about money, but any books in general that had an impact on you.
One of the ones that was really big was The Slight Edge, and it's just a great book on life in general and making good habits. And one of the habits that he talks about is like doing 30 sit-ups a day. You do 30 sit-ups in the morning, you're not going to come home and have abs. But you do 30 sit-ups for 60 days, you're going to see a little difference. And just those slight, habits. If you miss a day brushing your teeth, you're not going to have rotten teeth. But if you go a month without brushing your teeth, you're going to see differences. So those, good habits, bad habits make a huge difference in your life. And that book, I need to read it again, but it's awesome.
If there's someone listening who, appreciates your journey and how you were able to cash flow your wedding, get out of debt, now you're saving for a car, but they feel like they don't have the ability to do what you've done based on their own circumstances or, how much they make versus how much debt they're in. And they just feel like that was good for Kelly, but I don't know if I can do it. what words of encouragement would you offer to them if you could talk to them one-on-one?
You can do it. Absolutely. I was living paycheck to paycheck when I first started. I was constantly overdrafting in my bank account. And the biggest thing was just getting on a written budget, knowing what you're spending. I guarantee that people are spending that they don't realize that they're doing. You know, those little $5 purchases, they really add up, and you're really tracking your spending. It's amazing how much you can cut from your budget. Little things like adding some overtime here and there, little side hustles. It really can make such a big difference. And honestly, you guys can do it.
This has been great, Kelly. Tell everybody about your website and your YouTube channel and how they can connect with you.
Freedom in a Budget. I am on YouTube mainly, and then also Instagram and Facebook as well.
So Freedom in the Budget on YouTube and Instagram. Everybody go and check Kelly out. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your incredible journey with our audience today. Thanks.
Thank you.